It's time to hear it from Harlan. Utah Director of Athletics Mark Harlan takes you behind the scenes with the Utes, the Pac-12, and collegiate athletics. Now here's your host, Mike Lagerschul.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the April edition of the Hear It From Harlan podcast. Coming up, we'll talk about highlights of the late winter and early spring sports season. Mark will tell us about Craig Smith, the new head man of the Running Utes. Also, national champion Nordic skier Sydney Palmer-Ledger will join Mark for his one-on-one interview. And Mark will give us his thoughts on some developments at the conference and national level. Also, an update on the Ken Garff Performance Zone at Rice-Eccles Stadium. Well, Mark, it's been a bit. Welcome to the show.
Mike, thank you. It's great talking to you and having a chance to update everybody. It's been a really exciting time and look forward to getting into some items.
You know, you and I were talking last fall, Mark, about this possibility of this mega spring sports season with all the sports going on, from the fall sports we missed, like volleyball and cross country and soccer, and the winter sports going, and then, you know, baseball, softball picking up. And our dream came true. It actually happened. There's been very few stoppages for COVID-19. It's been really a pretty good 4 or 5 month run. Just your thoughts on how this winter and spring has played out compared to how you thought it might turn out about 8 months ago.
Well, you're right. I remember talking to you in great detail about the hope for and the dream of all our student athletes competing, you know, particularly after that fall season. We saw a surge in the virus a little bit, and we were getting really worried. But what's really happened is through the great work of our medical staff and our coaches and most importantly, our student athletes, we've been able to compete. And to your point, we've had a few stoppages and cancellation, but by and by, we're over the 90%, competition in terms of their schedule. And that's something I wouldn't have guessed in the fall. I would have thought it would have been, in some cases, maybe they'd get half their games in. So it's been thrilling and so fun to watch our young people compete. And certainly we've seen incredible successes too, which has been really awesome. But at the end of the day, just getting out there competing, it's what they do. And after last year's halt, it's been particularly gratifying, to see our spring sports really have a really strong full season.
Yeah, you're right, Mark. Just so many unknowns when we talked about this 8-9 months ago and the possibilities. And it was all just this dream, this idea that we weren't sure if it would actually come to fruition, and it has. And it's been just a great run for the Utes. Let's talk about the highlights, Mark, and a lot to get to. But first of all, an NCAA skiing championship, the 14th in school history, 16 All-Americans, 9 podium finishes. It's the second one in 2 tries for Frederick Landstad. It's been a great start to his career, but what a great performance by the Ute skiers about a month and a half ago.
I think in some quarters you just take the ski team for granted. They train, they ski, and then they win the Natty.
Right.
But it's just not that easy. It's so hard, and the competition it has been rising of late. And just to see them again, a team that was literally told to come down the mountain 2 days into their championship last year, which would have been our 14th national championship, to rebound from that, to recruit unbelievable talent, and to go and win it again was an extraordinary achievement by our ski team, and our coaches, Miles and certainly Frederick and JJ, just did a remarkable job, and it was incredible. And obviously we're going to hear from Sydney Palmer-Ledger in a few moments, but to have a true freshman from Park City go win 2 national championships in Nordic racing was unbelievable. And so very excited for them and excited for Frederick. It is our 14th national championship, and the trophy up until recently was sitting right here in my office, and now it's making its rotation around the building, but very, very proud of them.
Yeah, never get tired of winning national championships. And as you said, you almost take it for granted with skiing at sometimes, but great job by Frederick and his crew to get the job done this year after, as you said, having it really kind of ripped from them a year ago due to COVID-19. Gymnastics, Mark, another team that missed out on NCAAs a year ago. They were ranked 4th in the country, hoping for a strong run. That did not happen, but this year they were right there again. Miley O'Keefe, a couple titles on bars and floor. 4 athletes earned All-America status. And Mark, I know you were there in Fort Worth. That semifinal day on Friday when Utah had to hold off Alabama and track down LSU to make top 2 in that afternoon session on Friday to go to Saturday's Final Four. What a great, dramatic Friday afternoon gymnastics. What a great run by the Red Rocks to place 3rd amongst the Final Four on Saturday.
Yeah, you said it, Mike. I mean, it was arguably, or maybe not even arguably, the most exciting sport moment I've had around the Utes in my 3 years here. On that Friday quarterfinal, it was extraordinary. Going into the last routine, we were heading to bars, which statistically was our weakest event, even though for most it's strong. And, we were behind LSU and Alabama was going to the floor, and you just kind of felt like, gosh, can we do this? But it didn't matter what I thought. It didn't matter what some of the parents I was sitting around thought, right? It really mattered what those young ladies thought as they had headed to, and to find out later that Sydney gave a speech for the ages. headed over to that final event, and just to watch it go down and then to stare at the video board and watch us leapfrog LSU and hold off Alabama was just an amazing moment. And to watch the joy of our team just as it unfolded right there, pretty much right in front of our Utah section. And it was just, those reminders of what all the work and all the things that everyone does, just have those moments that are all worth it. And, we'll talk to Sydney about that later too, when she won the national championship in that moment. But it was incredible. The next day, we just had an amazing score. Michigan was hot, and you got to tip your hat to them. Obviously, the defending champs in Oklahoma were too, but man, Mike, we just missed. As Tom described to me, I mean, that's a tilt there or a judgment there by a judge, so to speak. But it didn't matter. It was an incredible finish. We finished third in the country. I think all but Emily will be back, and I think Emily will even be back in some type of student coaching role. So can't wait for that team, right, to keep rolling and continue with the momentum. But tip my hat to Tom Barton and his staff and all the student athletes from gymnastics. An extraordinary year.
Yeah, it sure was. Miley O'Keefe named the Pac-12 Gymnast of the Year in addition to her 2 national championships. I talked to Tom a lot this winter with our radio coverage, and he just said, hey, that team maxed out. They did everything they could. They gave it a great run, as you said, down the end. Michigan was hot. Oklahoma, very good. To place third with that foursome right there in the final day was a great run by that Utah team. And bright future. Michaela Skinner may be coming back. A couple other women in line for the Olympic team perhaps will be here as freshmen next year, so it could be a great team for these coming up in 2022. Mark, one of the fun things about this winter and spring has been we've had some traditionally fall sports going. Volleyball earned a number 14 seed, not the run they were hoping for in NCAA's, but Beth Lanier's team, a great job to place third in the Pac-12 and to earn that number 14 seed.
Yeah, volleyball, again, I put them on the same list with soccer. And I want to point them out, both those programs, and certainly cross country as well, that just, had to be training in the summer just in case the season was going to start. We didn't know what we were going to do, and then they got moved to the spring. So they just had to have, be laser focused through this entire process. And so if we're talking about volleyball, first up here, I mean, they had just a great season. We're right at the top of the league for most of the year. Then the injury bug, unfortunately, hit us a little bit, and it caused us to not win the regular season championship. But certainly we were able to get a first-round bye in the NCAA in a shrunk field this year. And, obviously Beth wasn't pleased with the outcome of the game versus Pitt. But Pitt was a really hot team. I think they made it all the way to the grade 8. And, again, tip your hat to them. But our team was extraordinary this year. They fought through so much in such a hard conference, Mike, as you know. So,
right.
Again, very proud. It's probably a theme that you'll hear from me a lot throughout this podcast, because I just see what they have to go through, and focusing academically, and even at the end, making a championship, but your parents can't go, people can't go, you got to go to a bubble, it's just tough. But they did it, and the great thing about volleyball, soccer, and cross country, we'll close our eyes, and they'll be right back here when they settle back into their fall season. So we'll see them back here really soon.
Yep, we sure will. Danny Drews named the Pac-12 Player of the Year in volleyball, also the first to be named a 2-time first-team All-American, so some individual honors for her. Also, Mark, I want to talk about swimming and diving. We could talk about all the sports, and you can't cover it all, but I just want to get some highlights here. And how about this? Luke McDivitt was named the Pac-12 Men's Diver of the Year, Utah's first ever Pac-12 platform diving champion, also our first-team All-American in diving. So a great run by Luke and the swimming and diving team for the men and women this past season. Yeah, Luke with a record historical year in a sport that not many can do, and the ones he competes against are all elite. So, it's the first time that's happened for us here, and just an extraordinary year for him and for the team, who qualified a lot of young people to go to the national championship. So our swim team continues to be in the top 25, and, large team and a lot of changes to their schedule this year, but they had a great finish. All right, today's show being brought to you by Pepsi. Grab a Pepsi and some friends and get in the game. Pepsi, proud partner of University of Utah Athletics. Mike Laga Show with Utah AD Mark Harlan on the Hear It From Harlan podcast for the month of April. And Mark, you've been a busy guy with all the sports going on, also a major hire for the program. Craig Smith was named the new men's basketball head coach on March 27th. He spent the past 3 years at Utah State, had them earn 3 consecutive NCAA tournament berths. They could not go, of course, in 2020, but his team was right there after winning the Mountain West tournament to earn that bid a year ago. They got there this year, 74 wins, 24 losses in 3 years at Utah State. A veteran head coach. Just tell us about what stood out to him or stood out to you about him during the search process that led you to name Craig Smith our new head coach for men's basketball.
Well, when decided to make the change in basketball, and I certainly want to give Larry and his staff just tremendous credit for 10 years of great leadership. Larry inherited a very difficult situation 10 years ago, and did a lot of incredible things here. And so I really want to appreciate him for everything he did. When that change was made, what I really was focused in on, and I want to get Scott Cole and Charmel Green, two great deputy athletic directors here who worked with me closely on the search along with Manny Hendricks. But what we were really looking for is someone that had obviously proven success on the court, but also a real ability to articulate relationship building in terms of their students, in terms of the recruiting process, and really be able to lay out a vision to return Utah to that elite status that this program has been accustomed to in many, many years. And so, Craig was able to really walk us through all that, and combined with, what I had known about him, obviously being close, I knew a lot about Craig. Certainly anybody that's into college basketball has known the success of the program, particularly in the last 3 years of his arrival there. And so, when it was all said and done, Craig just made a lot of sense for our program. And now we're a month into him being here, and I've just been really proud of his enormous efforts. If he can squeeze 26 hours in a 24-hour day, he's doing it. I just have to remind him to sleep and eat every now and then. But,
right.
As I record this today, he's got his full allotment of coaches now in place, and they're great professionals with different backgrounds, with a lot of recruiting contacts, but they all share a player development as a strength of theirs. And, being able to be on the court with the guys in the individual period of which we just ended, which is 15 practices, the ability to get those coaches out there and working with our team. At the same time, obviously, we've had some transfers, and so that's led to us to having more scholarships and the ability to recruit both in the portal space, but also in the high school space. And, just watching the work ethic, watching the energy, the passion, I'm very confident that Craig's going to do a great job here, and look forward to more people getting to meet Craig. That's obviously been difficult in COVID, but believe me, he'll be out and about. It's something he loves to do. He's a people person, and I anticipate his energy along with his strategy and his really elite level of teaching will really get us where we want to be as a basketball program.
Yeah, I've heard great things. I know there was an event about a week ago for some boosters that got a chance to meet Craig and interact. I heard great things about their night with him. So excited to get him out in the community. And also DeMarlo Slocum, Mark, former Utah assistant coach, came back. Eric Peterson, Tim Morris hired this week as well. So the staff is filled out, as you mentioned, and he's got some great guys under him.
Yeah, and it's great. And Eric and Tim are awesome and new to Utah in terms of University of Utah. And they'll be great additions, but it's so great to have Slokes back. I really enjoyed him when he was here. He went to UNLV, I think after my first year here. His mom lives in Vegas. He grew up in Vegas. His mom was having some health challenges. The great news is she's through that. So Slokes is back, and he's able to kind of help guide the guys around a little bit when they don't know where to go. If you get a parking ticket, how do you handle it? Slokes is the one to take care of that, and so it's good to have him back. But they're all great individuals, and like I said earlier, I can't wait for our community to get to meet all of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, Mark, one more big piece of news a few weeks ago. Rich Manning stepping down as the head coach of the women's soccer program. Has been here 19 years. Went to NCAA's 8 times, 192 wins, and your thoughts on Rich Manning and what he did for Utah soccer.
Well, it's like I told Rich. 19 years is an amazing accomplishment. It's such a competitive profession that he's in, and he's been in a lot of NCAA championships. Right in the middle of his tenure, or maybe a little bit previous to that. Winning Mountain West championships, and welcome to the Pac-12.
Right, right.
Where women's soccer champion usually comes from our conference on most years, if not every year. So, just a great person, always cared about the kids and certainly their academic pursuits. So, hopefully Rich can really enjoy whatever his next step is, and just very honored of all his work here. So, Charmel Green has been tasked with chairing that search along with Liz Prince, who directly oversees the program, and they'll go out and bring me back two or three really good choices, and we'll collectively make a decision. But I told our soccer team, we've asked a lot from you this whole year. You've learned to adapt as young people, probably more than any generation recently has had to. And now we're going to ask you one more time to control the controllables and finish school strong. And we'll go out and find a great coach. Rich has elevated the program. It's a healthy program with, pretty much a brand new, beautiful soccer stadium. And we'll go find him a great coach and march forward.
Yeah, certainly a lot of great things to work with there with that program. We wish Rich and his wife, Sue, all the best. Well, coming up next, the Utah ski team hoisted the national championship trophy for the second time in 2 tries under Frederick Landstedt. One of the reasons why that happened was Nordic skier Sydney Palmer-Ledger, who won 2 individual titles. She will join Mark for his one-on-one interview when we come back in just a moment on the Hear From Harlan podcast.
Time now for Utah's head man to catch up with one of Utah's star student athletes. Once again, here's Utah Athletics Director Mark Harlan on the Hear It From Harlan podcast.
Well, as I always like to say, and boy, is it true today, the best part of this podcast is to have a chance to talk to one of our fabulous student athletes and get an update on how they're doing and what they've done, particularly this incredible year that they've all gone for. Today, we've upped our game a little bit, and we're going to get a chance to talk to Sydney Palmer-Ledger, an incredible Nordic skier who just so happens to be, after her freshman year, a 2-time national champion. Sydney, thanks so much for joining us today.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
So we're talking to you today. It's near the end of the semester. Tell me where you're at and what you're up to.
Yeah, I'm mostly just training right now, having some fun, running and skiing and biking, and just trying to figure the end of school. I only have a couple more assignments in 2 finals, and then I'm done.
Wow. Well, congratulations. Yeah. I know it's been a long year, and just, it's funny, our people who follow us, read about you guys in the sports page, and I always like to remind people that's just a very small part of the story. The story is all what you guys have to go through to study and finish the year. And so congratulations from getting there. So let's go back a couple months. Obviously our ski team, is just an incredible history here going into the season, 13 national championships, although I like to argue 14 with last year being called off. But nonetheless, we had 13 coming into this year. You joined the team. You're up in Park City. You decided to join the adventure. So let's start there. What brought you to the University of Utah?
So at first, I honestly didn't want to go to Utah because I grew up in Park City. So it was kind of like my hometown. I wanted to get it away. But the training and the coaches and the team they're so great that I couldn't turn that down. And I honestly have never regretted making the decision to come to Utah. Being in the city is a lot different than living in Park City. Kind of nice, living close to home, but being kind of far and trying living in the city. And just having the support staff of PTs and sports psychologists and having Miles and Frederick, they have just improved my racing and just how I am as a skier and athlete so much this year.
Well, as the director of athletics, a couple comments on that. Thank you for choosing to come here. And it's also gratifying to hear the support staff and your coaches living up to what you hoped they would be. So really appreciative of your comments there. And then, so you decide to come.
Yeah.
You're coming off, the COVID had gone obviously into your senior year in high school, and you had to go through all the limitations that we had to work through, but you guys were able to train. I was staying really close to Frederick and Miles, certainly JJ as well during all of this. You guys started going in the fall. When did you start feeling that you and the team had something special? When did that start occurring to you? Was that mid-fall or was that a little bit later?
Yeah, mid-fall or a little bit earlier, like closer towards the season, I knew we were pretty strong. When we first started doing like time trials at like Soldier Hollow with other teams, I just we'd dominate the field. We would do intervals together, and I could just see how strong we were. I didn't know exactly how we were going to do once the season started, if we actually had a season, but I was hopeful that we'd be strong and that we'd have at least a couple of races.
So how did it feel, not knowing how much team sport you've done? I mean, I know you mentioned that you and Novi were on some teams together, but what did it feel like to win a team national championship?
It was unreal because, cross-country skiing is very individual. You don't get a lot of team where your races affect the points overall. So, it was kind of I want to race well, but I also want to get some points for our team, and hopefully we can get, a national championship. And watching all the Alpiners and kind of nervous how they were going to do. And then when we finally found out the last day after the boys were done that we had won, everyone was cheering and screaming, and it was just kind of something I've never experienced before. And this team is amazing. So we being able to win together and kind of share the same experience and, have the trophy and go around in the airport and people ask what we did and congratulate us was amazing.
Well, it's what it's all about. There's moments, particularly in your sport, where you're out there training by yourself when no one's watching, but to have the kind of moments where people, do notice things going through the airport. Favorite pictures, I actually have one in my office from previous championship skiing teams where everyone's waving the flags for you guys. It's just extraordinary. So again, congratulations on just an amazing year. Now, you set a kind of high bar for yourself.
I know.
Two caddies and a team championship. So it begs the question, what's next? What do you got cooking this summer in terms of training and what do you see next year looking like?
Yeah, so start of June, I'll be heading to Alaska to train for June and July with a bunch of US ski team girls and just a big group. And then I'll be back in August and hopefully maybe I'll get some World Cup starts and then race college races. And then we'll see how we're doing. If maybe I can qualify for Olympics, maybe not. I'm not sure because I'm still only 19. So we're kind of just open. But mostly just, either racing international and college races or just college races. It's kind of, up in the air right now.
Well, it sounds like a lot of really exciting opportunities for you, a lot of hard work, but opportunities. Let me just, before I let you go, let's talk about the Olympics. I imagine in your space, that is the ultimate dream that you've probably been chasing for a long time. So just a little insight on what that takes to make the Olympic team.
Yeah, so it's going to be pretty challenging. We have a really tough women's field, and there's so many fast girls that are going to be fighting for that spot. So you can either make it international or domestic. And so if I get the chance to race World Cups, I can try to make it over there by getting a top 30 and getting points. Or in the US, there's super tours. And if you're one of the top females with the super tour overall points, then you can also make it there. There's a pretty good chance that we can make it, but it's going to be tough.
Wow. That would be an incredible opportunity for you to get that done. But I think what you've shown us here is that anything's possible.
Anything's possible.
So we're gonna watch, and obviously as department continue to support all your efforts. Let me ask, just one thing came to mind. Obviously Park City, and one can assume that's a good place to grow up and be a skier. What was it your parents that did this? What brought you to Nordic skiing?
Yeah, my parents moved to Park City and just, biking and skiing because there's so many good teams, Tuna, Soldier Hollow, Park City. And so my older brother did it, and then I kind of wanted to follow in his footsteps, and I saw how fun it was. So I've been doing it for a while, and at first it was just something fun. And then when I was 11, I made my first junior nationals. And so then from that point, I loved the adrenaline. I loved racing these big races, and I started training more. And then so I would race mountain bikes in the summer and then ski in the winter. And then 2 years ago, I decided to kind of put biking not into an end, just not racing, and then focus on, making World Cups, winning NCAAs, because I didn't think that was going to be possible as a freshman. World Cups, Olympics, that kind of stuff.
It's just incredible. I know when I was 11, I was just trying to snowplow, but you made a junior national team.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for taking time. I had to laugh when we just got hooked up on the phone, and you're in the middle of a run up in Park City. So sorry to interrupt that. You to get where you are, I'm sure the training is so intense, but I can just tell in your voice you're having fun too, and I think that's really, really important. And incredible year. We're so honored that you're here. We're so blessed that we'll have you for a few more years and be able to support all your efforts. So have a great rest of week, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
And welcome back to the show. It's brought to you by University of Utah Health with 16 convenient neighborhood health centers. We have a game plan for your family's health. Visit uvuhealth.org today. Well, Mark, I never take offense when you say your favorite part of the show is talking to our student athletes. I mean, as a host, I'm here. I kind of do my thing, but I know what it's really about. And Sydney, one of the more engaging ones we've had on the show, great conversation with her. Just amazing, Mark, to tell her story about she wanted to go someplace else for college, grew up in Park City and wanted to change the scenery, but the program and the coaches in particular were so good. She could not turn down the chance to come to Utah, and it worked out so well for her to be a two-time national champion already as a freshman.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that. That was something I found really fascinating, and I'm glad folks got to hear that. That's not uncommon, when you have students that live around the university, and this has been true of any place I go. They're always going to look over the fence, so to speak. But the fact that she stuck with it, and I think of the Eccles family and others that have contributed to the program, and for instance, our ski building, which is one of the best in the country, and so I imagine she's looking at that, and then hearing from Frederick and Miles, our incredibly accomplished coaches, and she just said, this is the place for me. And then to hear fast forward, what a year she's had and how happy she is. That's pretty gratifying in my chair to hear that. The fact that she won 2 national championships proves that too. But to hear the other things, and just as I just reflect on that interview and thinking about it, she's elite, Mike, and she's like one in the world in her age group, and I love the part when she was talking about the Olympics, and where we're going to see her, right?
Right.
We know what her future looks like, and our ski team's amazing. We're just blessed with having either current Olympians or former Olympians, and I think in the case of Sydney, that right there is a future Olympian. So incredible program, pride for this university, and I'm glad folks got to hear from Sydney.
Yeah, great conversation. It's tough to make the Olympic team, as we know, but she's certainly amongst that group that they will look at, and a great start to her college career. Again, 2-time national champion in Nordic, Sydney Palmer-Ledger. Great to talk to her on our podcast. Well, Mark, always fun to get your thoughts on some topics that are impacting us nationally and the Pac-12 as well, and how they have an effect on us at Utah. Kind of a major deal here announced a few weeks ago, the change in the NCAA transfer policy starting this fall semester. It will be the same for all athletes in all sports. In fact, we have 5 sports before: football, men's and women's basketball, baseball, and men's hockey, where we had to sit out a year after a transfer. That's no longer the case. Your thoughts on that piece of legislation?
Well, it was time, Mike, quite candidly. I mean, it's always been a head scratcher and somewhat hard to, rationalize why other student athletes in sports other than the 2 basketballs, baseball, football, and ice hockey, why those student athletes could transfer and not serve a year in residency, but those in those sports had to. And it just became indefensible, quite candidly. And I think the NCAA came to that realization. It just took a long time to get it done. And sometimes the slow moving wheels of shared governance work. But the fact that we're here is not a surprise at all. To be honest with you, in the last year and a half to 2 years, most were getting waivers anyway when they transferred to be able to compete right away. So, publicly it might look a little different than it is internally, where this has kind of been how we've been operating. So what's our job? Our job, from a coaching perspective, is to continue to do what they're doing, make this the very best environment that you can, communicate with your students the best that you can, and put it all out there, knowing that some students will decide that another place is better for them. And, we will thank those students and wish them the very best. At the same time, the NCAA has made it incredibly easy to go on the transfer portal and be able to look at the database and be able to recruit those back in to fill those spots. And that's what we're doing at the University of Utah. We're not complaining about it. We're embracing it. And, just in this last week, I've met so many of our new transfer students, and they're awesome young people, and we're blessed to have them. And, I will admit, I keep an eye on our students that have left in some, even the low profile sports, and I cheer for them too. So, here at Utah, we're going to make this a net positive. And work with our coaches and work with the system accordingly. But it was time, Mike.
Yep.
The other sports being able to do it and these sports not being able to never made sense. And now at least we have one level playing field.
Yep, I agree with that. It's such a tough decision to decide where to go to college and play sports. And sometimes you get someplace and you're like, you know what, this just isn't the right fit. And to give those athletes a chance to go someplace else once and every sport and play right away, I think it's a great thing, a great move, and it will certainly help Utah as well. As you said, it's a kind of a two-way street, and we'll see how this plays out in the coming months.
Let me just say one thing to that,
Sure.
though, because I do think this part's important, right? So when I answer that question, I'm talking about just how we run things. But what I'm also very understanding of is we have fans who, develop relationships from afar of our students that compete, particularly in higher profile sports. And it's hard. And I talked to many of our fans who are disappointed. And I get it. And I understand. And frankly, it's a tribute to that young person who has built up a following, right?
Right.
And they leave, and it hurts. And I talked to one of our more high profile transfers just recently because I like him a lot, and I want to know how he's doing. And it's gratifying to hear that he's. It's not like he's gotten all great feedback from Ute fans, but he said the vast majority of it has been wishing him best of luck, and that's our fan base, right? And it's a tribute to who they are. But these are young people, and they have decisions they have to make. But I understand and recognize that you develop relationships, and when they leave, they're gone. I just would continue to ask our fans to develop new relationships as the new students come in. And then collectively, we're all going to emerge a better version of Utah athletics as we manage this in the best possible way.
All right. Well said, Mark. The big story at the conference level, we all know Larry Scott is stepping down. That was announced a while ago. The search is on for a new Pac-12 commissioner. Mark, for you as an AD and an institution in this conference, what's been your level of involvement in this process, and what can you tell us about that process at this moment? Well,
what is true, it's a big hire for the conference. I can't emphasize enough that the next leader, in the Conference of Champions is going to have a very big portfolio. He or she will have to manage these vast changes, of which we just talked about one in transferring, but all the others as we relook and define what amateurism is and what the collegiate model is. All things that we have to collectively as a conference and work together on. So in terms of athletic directors in the process, we were certainly active early. We met with the search firm leadership individually as ADs and other folks in the leadership structure about what kind of profile, not talking about people as much as profile, and specifically what our campus would be looking for. So certainly that part of the process. But as you would expect in any high-profile search, from there, that group gets very small, and that's our presidents and chancellors that are in a group of 5 that are managing the search. So, I do know in these high-profile search, there can be media things that come out that, may not make sense or make sense. There's a lot of stuff that goes on in a vacuum of silence. I'm confident that our president and CEOs are going to come out with somebody great who we're going to rally behind and work with. In terms of timeline, my hope is that we can get this wrapped up in the next 4 to 6 weeks so that we can begin our process with the new commissioner and And then what the presidents and CEOs have all agreed is that when that person's hired, expect individual visits to each campus. And that'll be the opportunity for myself and certainly Dr. Good, our interim president, and my seniors team and coaches to really sit with him or her to talk about Utah and what we see as the best path forward. So excited to see who it is. But in terms of, the who and the when, we're not totally in the loop, and nor should we be at this point. So we'll wait and see what the outcome is.
All right, very good. Mark, another piece of Pac-12 conference type news. COVID-19 testing, I know can get almost tiring to talk about it as we've done it so much, but I thought the Pac-12 took their time and got it right last year, and we've seen the results of that, which has been very good the past 6 to 8 months with, in terms of teams playing and no major issues with their testing program. Looking to next year, Mark, and I know it's April, but we'll be in fall sports in about 4 months. Very quickly, it'll be upon us. In terms of testing and vaccinations and so forth for athletes and coaches, anything at this point that you've talked about in terms of a policy for all that going to the 21-22 athletics year?
Yeah, I think right now it's a little early to speculate too much on what it could look like. But what I can say is what I know today. And what I know today is our students continue to do a great job. Quite candidly, we haven't had a positive test here in over a month. I don't want to jinx us, but that's just the facts. And we've been testing quite a bit, particularly during spring football. All our football players had to test just like they had to in the fall. And certainly all the other sports that you're seeing competing are on some kind of testing rhythm 2 or 3 times a week. And so our students are doing a great job. Obviously the numbers in Utah are going down. We're also seeing them go down across the campus, the Pac-12 footprint. So as we sit here today, all the data is really trending in the right direction. And so my hope, obviously, is that we'll see us enter into, fall training, full speed ahead with all sports being aligned on their typical schedules that they would. And what we don't know, as you and I tape this today, is what the testing will be for our student athletes. The CDC just yesterday obviously released some new guidelines that those that are vaccinated and a little bit more that they can do. Our Pac-12 Medical Advisory Board, will continue to be the guiders in all of this, and certainly they're attached to the CDC. Obviously, the more students that we have vaccinated, I think the better chance we're going to have not only here at Utah but up and down our conference. We are working on a lot of education with our students on that matter. And we'll continue to do so. So I think the higher vaccination numbers will be better for us to be able to live fall sports and have everybody maybe not test, certainly not be able to get caught up in contact tracing. We'll know a little bit more about that probably in the coming weeks. And of course, the last thing I'll say about all this is it relates to the fans coming back in force. I really want to thank our fans that came to the spring game. It was awesome to have 6,500 plus in attendance, but even more so, everyone, for the most part, adhered to the masks requirements. That was a really big deal for us, Mike, because we had a lot of eyeballs on that in terms of folks that are going to be working with us this summer to decide what we can do. And we just did a great job. And I say we, our fans did just a great job. And so, we've got motocross in the stadium right now. Last Saturday, again this Saturday. Today, publicly announced a Garth Brooks concert in Rice-Eccles in July. Those are awesome measurements for us as we look to that first Thursday night in September. So, as long as the community continues with our vaccination numbers going up, the virus numbers going down, I'm really confident we can get a lot of people into the newly renovated Rice-Eccles Stadium this fall. So just continue to urge everyone to do what we're doing to get this virus more in control in this community. But I'm very excited on what I think will be.
Mark, you talked about the spring game, and we heard Cindy Palmer-Ledger talk about just having some fans at Nationals, or having her mom there. I've talked to other athletes who've been so happy to have some fans in the stands at their games. We had a great crowded baseball this past weekend when Utah walked off against ASU. With that spring game, to have around 7,000 fans there, it's been a long stretch for us as people in athletics to get back to normalcy. That was a step in the right direction at that spring game a few weeks ago. And, Mark, for you to see that many fans there, to see them wearing masks, as you said, to seem like we're heading in the right direction. Just your thoughts on the atmosphere that day, what it was like to have fans back, and to have so many people see the South End Zone project, the Ken Garff Performance Zone at Rice-Eccles Stadium. It's coming along very well, pretty much enclosed, but just what a great day to have everyone there to watch the game and really see the progress with that South End Zone Stadium project.
Yeah, just had a lot of energy. I was in Fort Worth, so I wasn't present, but in talking to people that were there and certainly getting my updates throughout the day, the common thing that I kept hearing over and over again was so great to be back in front of the youths, and from our football coaches and players, so great to be back in front of our fans.
Yeah.
Right? And we got a bunch couldn't get in, and we know that's just a small slice of what our overall base can do, but it was a whole different juice in there, and talking to some of our student athletes. And, of course, the other thing I heard from our fans was just to look south and see the Ken Garff Performance Zone in reality, right? I mean, a lot of them had seen him driving up and down 500, but to actually see it from inside the stadium, and how it all fits in there nicely, it's just a lot to look forward to, Mike, and, can't wait to celebrate it with everybody. We've got about 87% of all the seats sold in the Ken Garff Performance Zone. The only product that's left is the rooftop seats, and those are going really fast, and we anticipate those being sold, no later than the first part of June. So everything's trending for us to continue our sellout streak, despite the fact that we added close to 5,000 new seats, and just gotta continue to control this virus to have everybody in there. But again, I'm very optimistic that we're going to get there.
Very good, Mark. One last word on the stadium project, the Ken Garff Performance Zone. Is everything on track for completion as of right now to be ready for that home opener in September? Yeah,
my last briefings on that we're right there. David Layton and Layton Constructions and his team, and just done a remarkable job. And, obviously when you get to the final of a project, I've been a part of these a few times, there's always some things that pop up, but we're managing all of it. And just feel like we should be right there, with hopefully a nice month to spare for us to really do any final things before we open it up to the big football crowd. But, you can see evidence not only inside the stadium with what we just talked about, but also, look at the Olympic Cauldron and how it's been moved and placed and refurbished and sitting out there. We still have work to do there, but on schedule, on budget, for what we always thought we would be, which is that first Thursday night in September.
Yep, I've been on a tour myself. It looks fantastic. You mentioned the Cauldron. It's so nice to have that back, and just the things that they've done and you and your staff have done. The small touches on a project like this could be so big, and they've all been done so well. Congrats on that and the progress. And, Mark, I tell you what, it's been the craziest of crazy years, and a chance for us now to catch our breath this summer and the spring, and hopefully have large crowds back at our events this fall. Can't say enough about what you and your staff have done. It's been a trying time, but your leadership from yourself and from your team has been tremendous, and we are almost through it, and brighter days ahead. Mark, thank you again for your time, and have a great summer.
Mike, thank you, and to you as well. You've done an amazing job, and just so many folks have worked so hard and sacrificed. I think back to the department-wide furlough. It's kind of, we're all in this together, and we're all going to emerge together and in a better version of ourselves. And of course, our coaches, and most importantly, our student athletes who have just been through so much. And it's good to feel that finish line. We've got to run through the tape here as we head toward the next year. But I want to thank everybody, our fans, for their patience, their adaptability to everything we go through. But we're almost there and can't wait to see everybody.
All right. Brighter days ahead, Mark. Thank you again.
All right, Mike, thank you.
All right, thanks to Sydney Palmer-Ledger for joining us as well. Also, thanks to Mike Gillen on the technical side. And for Mark Harlan, I'm Mike Lagerstiel. Thanks for joining us for the Hear It From Harlan podcast. Until next time, so long, everybody.
This has been the Hear It From Harlan podcast. Subscribe and listen all year long as we keep you up to date on Utah athletics.